2.7 Urban Lifestyle Radio Station.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Edu. The news is also live on Kasmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 29 minutes. Ghana Union of Traders Associations GUTA demands immediate suspension of the latest utility tariff increment announced by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission. Meanwhile, Minority on Parliament Energy Committee is calling on the PRC to publish the full mathematical basis for every utility tariff adjustment made since January 2025, insisting that greater transparency is needed to justify the recurring increases. And much later on the program, lawyer Atachian files motion to adjourn the adjournment date against NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman Bernard Ntribu-Asiako. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, 577 consumer complaints were reported to the PRC in the Bono region. The infractions included billing adjustment, connection irregularities, and unpaid bills. Public Relations Officer of the Commission, Julia Entry, told 3FM that all infractions have been resolved as part of efforts to reinforcing consumer protection and accountability in utility services.
With the changes of tariffs that has been coming up. So this app basically helps consumers to calculate the right amount to pay for their bills. And we've carried out this education just to let consumers know about the app and then how they can use the app. We are going to do it to the end of the year. So definitely before the year ends, it's going to reach every consumer in the region to make sure that consumers are satisfied. And then wherever we find any issue, we are going to address it head on. But then one thing we always advise is that when you have an issue, you should go to the utility company and report first. Go there, report your concern. When you don't get a satisfactory response, please come to the commission and let us also do our bit to help resolve your issue for you.
And that was the PRC rather asking the media to educate the public on its mandate and encourage consumers to seek redress through the appropriate channels. But let's hear Julia Entry talk about the infractions which have been resolved as part of efforts to reinforcing consumer protection and complaint.
These were complaints that came to us. These consumers were wrongfully billed, and then they came to the commission, and we helped for these bills to be recorrected. And so this money was given back to consumers who were wrongfully billed. And then we also have a recovery figure of 9,077.75 Ghana cedis. This is a recovery figure for utilities. Now, these are consumers who were owing utilities, and some had also carried out illegal connection. So they reported these consumers to us, and the commission helped for these consumers to pay these monies back to the utility companies.
And I heard that the Public Relations Officer of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Julia Entry. Some more here, and the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, is demanding the immediate suspension of the latest utility tariff increases announced by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, arguing that consumers and businesses should not be made to bear the burden of inefficiencies within the power sector. The call comes after the PURC approved a 3.49% increase in electricity tariffs and a 0.85% increase in water tariffs, effective July 1, 2026. The Commission says the adjustments are necessary to reflect changes in key operational factors, including exchange rate movement, inflation, the electricity generation mix, and the cost of natural gas used in power generation. However, GUTA insists the economic indicators cited by the regulator do not justify the increases and warns that the additional cost burden could further strain businesses already grappling with high operational expenses. The association argues that before consumers are asked to pay more, inefficiencies and losses within the utility sector must first be addressed. Let's speak to Joseph Paddy, who is Vice President of GUTA, and he'll be joining us very shortly to bring us a bit more on this. So here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. Stay with us.
Greetings in the name of His Majesty.
And we're still here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. Let's go to Parliament now, where we understand the minority is also speaking about the tariff increase. The increase is announced by the PURC to take effect from the 1st of July.
The cumulative data paint a stark and indefensible picture. Quarter 2 of 2025 saw a 14.75% increase. Quarter 3 of 2025 saw a 2.45% increase. Quarter 4 of 2025 saw a 1.15% increase. Quarter 1 of 2026 saw a 9.8% increase. Quarter 2 of 2026 saw a reduction of 4.81%. And the latest Quarter 3 2026 has seen a 3.49% increase. Cumulatively, we have 26.82% if you take out the Quarter 2 reduction. Much talk accompanied the PURC second quarter 2026 announcement of a 4.81% reduction in electricity tariffs, effective April 1st, 2026. Government communicators, NDC foot soldiers, and sympathetic media were dispatched to sing the praises of President Mahama's economic turnaround. Ministers took to airwaves declaring victory. We cautioned them that this was not a policy achievement, but a quarterly technical adjustment driven entirely by a temporal appreciation of the Ghana cedi and a brief statistical dip in inflation. With this latest 3.49% increase taking effect on 1st July 2026, that supposed second quarter relief has been effectively erased within a single quarter of its announcement. The NDC's loudly talked about reduction has lasted exactly 91 days. Electricity tariffs now stand higher than they did before the so-called reduction, and water tariffs are also heading upwards by 0.85%. Ghanaians were given a temporary breather only to have it snatched back. To put these numbers in context, since January 2025, electricity tariffs in Ghana have risen by a staggering cumulatively 26.82%. Over the same period, government awarded workers a meager 10% wage increase, less than a third of the tariff burden placed on those very same workers. The NDC came to power promising a 24-hour economy and reduced cost of living. What they have delivered is a 26.82% increase in the cost of keeping the lights on. Consider also what this means for industry. Ghana's manufacturers, processors, and small enterprises operate in one of the most tariff-burdened utility environments in West Africa. Every upward adjustment in electricity costs erodes their competitiveness, raises the cost of production, and ultimately pushes prices higher for the very consumer the NDC claims to be protecting. The 24-hour economy cannot run on a 26.82% more expensive electricity. Jobs cannot be created when the cost of powering a factory keeps climbing every quarter.
And you had the ranking member of the Minority on the Energy Committee, Collins Adoma-Komensa, giving us the minority stance on the announcement made by the PRC regarding a tariff increment effective the 1st of July. Now, private legal practitioner Samuel Atachia has filed a motion to adjourn the judgment date against NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman Bernard Ntwibo-Esiako, also known as Wuntumi, after taking over as new counsel. The date for the judgment, scheduled for July 3 by the High Court, was set after the defense closed its case, having called on all witnesses to testify in favor of Wuntumi. But before the defense could heed the orders to file written submissions, Andy Apiakubi, then lead counsel for the NPP chairman, wrote a letter notifying the court of his decision to withdraw as legal representative. Following the withdrawal of his lawyer, Chairman Wuntumi, in his panic, quote-unquote, appointed Samuel Atachia as the new lawyer, with a new counsel asking the court for time to pursue the court proceedings. Atachia also noted in his motion that the registrar of the court had not heeded an application for the proceedings. He is thus praying the High Court to extend the time for the new defense to obtain the records and assess the proceedings to file written submissions ahead of the judgment. Chairman Wuntumi and his company, Akonta Mining, are facing charges of unauthorized assigning of mineral rights to individuals and facilitating illegal mining operations at a Samreboy concession in the Western region. The arrest and arraignment in Australia of the alleged kingpin behind a major methamphetamine trafficking syndicate has reignited debate about Ghana's role in the international narcotics trade. Well, Ghanaian authorities say they have arrested suspects linked to the case and investigations are ongoing. Questions are emerging about how the drugs left the country undetected and whether enough was to disrupt the network before it reached Australia. First, let's listen to the Director General of the Narcotics Control Commission, Brigadier General Maxwell Mante, speaking to the press earlier about this issue.
This afternoon, we'll be picking more. Whoever is involved, and like I always say, it is only God and the courts that can free you. We'll get to the bottom of this enterprise and make sure that Ghana will not be declared as a narco state. It is our determination that after the World Drugs Day on Friday, we are going to go out and hunt for those whose activity or whose business is to just sell drugs to destroy our young ones. Like my deputy always says, this is just the grace period. If you know you are involved in it, I'm only advising you because we will come after you. And nobody, and I say nobody, apart from God and the courts, who can free you. Please send a message across, and I want to encourage you, the press guys gathered here, ladies and guys gathered here, to assist us send a message across. It is just not right to sell something that you know will affect the national security of this country. It will affect our young and upcoming ones, and it will destroy their health. Please send a message across. We'll partner you to work towards that agenda.
And you had that Director General of the Narcotics Control Commission, Brigadier General Maxwell Mante. Let's speak to fraud and security consultant Richard Kumado. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We know that a number of arrests have been made in connection with this and more expected, but how do you assess really how this consignment left our shores in the first place without it being detected?
Okay, so there are three things involved. It is known that Ghana is an origin, a destination, and a transit point for all manner of crimes, including drugs. It is also a known fact that the officers at the Kuchoko International Airport and some other places have arrested a lot of drug addicts and drug peddlers and drug transporters and all related crimes. What is also important is that if the key kingpins in the drug business have committed similar offenses in some other countries, then a permutation could be made in such a way that they will not be arrested in Ghana, but they will be arrested in those countries to answer questions for that. Or it might have escaped them, and those guys over there have made certain arrests that they have informed our countrymen in Ghana to also make same. So these are the permutations when it comes to drug and drug-related, and why sometimes they are not arrested in Ghana and they'll be arrested in some other countries other than Ghana.
Beyond the arrest, I'm asking about how these huge, consignments eventually left, because they were intercepted at Sydney in Australia, and eventually.
And so that is what I was explaining, that if the kingpin involved has committed similar offenses in some other countries, our officers here will deliberately not arrest you, but you'll be arrested at the point of destination in some other instances, or they would have prevented you from traveling in the first place, because if they arrest you here, there will be issues of extradition and issues of politics and issues of all manner of complications. So law enforcement officers have these peculiar agreements and arrangements with their counterparts all over the world, that if kingpins committed similar crimes in some other countries, they should allow them to be arrested in those other countries other than our country. Or it would have been the case that we didn't see and they saw. But in many cases, drugs have been arrested in Kuchoko International Airport, and offenders have been prosecuted in that regard.
So in this case, per the information given us by NACOC, we seem to be getting different arrests. So the one I talked about earlier was in Australia. She even has gone before the court and was denied bail as far back as 19th of June 2026. And she's a British actress, we were told, she was supposed to receive the consignment. What we were told by NACOC authorities was that the one they have arrested is a Ghanaian, and of course, we understand that they've gone ahead to arrest more people. But really, does it signal a sign of some sort of lapses? Others argue that that could also be a case why we couldn't track it until it got to the area where it had to be received.
No, there are differences. There are different permutations involved. We have also arrested people in this country that led to some other arrests to be made in some other countries. What happens is that when it comes to the drug trade, there are several people or several persons involved. So one arrest could trigger the arrest of some other person. Not long ago in this country, one of our big men was arrested in the U.S. For drug-related offenses. In that particular arrest scheme, a lot more arrests were made, not just in Ghana, not just in the U.S., but in some other countries like Canada in that related arena. So this is the way the operations happen within the drug environment. One arrest is made and the other ones are followed. It might be that we didn't see, but it could also be, with my knowledge in this particular area, it could also be that they know this person has been doing drug trafficking for some time. Surveillance has been on this person. They have arranged with some other persons where they might have trafficked drug to, that it is better you guys pick this person up there. So we will alert you anytime they are coming so that arrest is made. And that is the way it works.
Over the period, especially when Ghana has come on the radar as regards transiting of such illicit drugs, we hear authorities tell us that measures are being put in place to make it even more difficult to do so. Based on the information you have, how difficult is it really for drug consignments to pass through our systems to other places?
It's very difficult because they made a lot of arrests. I can confidently speak to that when you go to Kotaka, there has been an improved search and seizure arrangement. A lot of seizure has been done. Drug peddlers have used various means and various methodologies to invade the sighting of the drug and even the identities. And I can say on authority that a lot more has been done at Kotoka International Airport. And that is why I have no doubt in my mind that even though they wouldn't want the general public to know, this particular one might be one of those arrangements within law enforcement, security, intelligence circles that this person might have peddled drugs across certain geographical locations across the group. So it would be better we do not arrest such people here, but they are arrested in some other locations across the group. Or it could be the case that in spite of the difficulties we pose for drug peddlers at the airport, this particular one slipped through.
Mr. Kumado, thank you so much for speaking to us.
You are welcome.
And you had there Richard Kumado. He's a fraud and security consultant, resident of Atonsu, Kuwait, in the Kumasi metropolis. May finally be seeing hope after years of battling devastating floods. For nearly 8 years, heavy rains have turned parts of the community into flood zones, destroying property and disrupting livelihoods. Now, a dredging exercise is underway to restore the flow of two major rivers and reduce the risks of flooding after a 3FM report. There's more in the following report.
Whenever heavy rains hit Kumasi and its surrounding communities, residents of Atonsu, Kuwait brace themselves for another flood disaster. The situation, residents say, is caused by the overflowing Atonsu and Susan rivers, worsened by the indiscriminate dumping of refuse into the waterways, which obstruct the free flow of water. Over the years, several homes have been inundated, forcing families to count their losses after every major downpour. Concerned about the recurring challenge, residents have welcomed an ongoing dredging exercise aimed at desilting the rivers and improving drainage capacity.
How can but this year, so I started, any Yahano, so you see, I you say to say no more when say jai e mo nsuo ni san baby mu a e be ha ya dwempa
say adumako a Mr. Adumako ye nya no a obeboa ye animanimu ya enketinent na ha ye be sere assembly no omman na anya ha.
The intervention is spearheaded by a cybersecurity expert and philanthropist Kwame Adomako Samuel, who says the initiative is intended to provide a long-term solution to the flooding menace.
Ahead of the sudden flooding issue that occurred weeks ago after a heavy rain poured, now I came to assess the situation and I realized that it's something that I myself can help the people to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because always if we say we are relying on government's intervention, by the time that intervention comes, there might be a tragedy we might not be able to solve. So today, I just took it upon myself to help the people here so that they will not see whatever they saw the last time the rain was so heavy here.
Residents are expressing optimism that the dredging of the Atonso and Susan rivers will reduce flooding and bring lasting relief to the community.
Ibrahim Abubakar brought us that report from the Ashanti region. The Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice Shraj, Dr. Joseph Whittal, has cautioned against the increasing use of plea bargaining in corruption-related cases. The issue has gained renewed attention following reports that the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Bernard Enchibuesiakon, popularly known as Chairman Wuntumi, has initiated plea bargain discussions with the Attorney General in a case in which he and two others are accused of causing a financial loss of 14.3 million Ghana cedis to the Ghana Export-Import Bank, Exim Bank. Now, while proponents argue that plea bargains can help recover stolen assets, save time and resources, and secure cooperation from accused persons, critics fear the process could allow influential individuals to avoid full accountability. Dr. Whittal says plea bargaining must be applied cautiously and should not be a tool that enables powerful persons accused of corruption to escape appropriate punishment.
Plea bargaining is acceptable by law. It is, and let me say, it has been legislated by Parliament. It is a way to resolve criminal and other corruption cases. So in principle, there's nothing wrong with it. But when it comes to corruption cases, because we don't want impunity for people to think that, I can dip my hand, take as much as I can, and negotiate with the Attorney General. That is where we need to draw the line. Let's make sure that if the Attorney General is going to exercise his discretion to negotiate for plea bargaining, they should do so mindful of the interests of the public. Because the public want not just return of some of the money, but of all the money with interest, and also possible prosecution, because deterrence needs to be done. Where we are in the fight against corruption, we need to show by example. People should be prosecuted and detained.
And you heard there the Commissioner of Shraj, Joseph Whittal. Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Nyako says the Ghana Gold Board is helping curb gold smuggling and boost foreign exchange earnings. Speaking in Parliament, Mr. Ampim Nyako disclosed that between January 2025 and May 2026, Gold Board purchased 135.8 metric tons of gold, with more than 135 metric tons sourced from the artisanal and small-scale mining sector. He said Gold Board spent about $16.1 billion on gold purchases during the period, including $9.8 billion in 2025, and generated over $10 billion in export revenue last year. He said the inflows from gold exports have contributed to the stability of the Ghana cedi while helping to reduce losses associated with gold smuggling.
Available reports, including from Reuters, indicates that Ghana lost about $11.4 billion between 2019 and 2023 through gold smuggling. The Gold Board is gradually reversing this bleeding. Mr. Speaker, on the source of supply, Gold Board's supply comes from two principal channels. First, the artisanal and small-scale mining sector, and second, the large-scale mining companies. Mr. Speaker, the Gold Board purchases and aggregates gold principally from the artisanal and small-scale mining sector through licensed buyers operating under the Gold Board licensing regime. As at 31st May 2026, Gold Board had licensed a total of 1,184 buyers. Mr. Speaker, from January 2025 to May 2026, the Gold Board purchased a total of 135.843 metric tons of gold.
And you heard the Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Nyako Ampim. That's it for the Midday News here on 3FM and 92.7. My name is Patriot. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Log on to 3news.com for more news.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, President of GUTA calls for immediate halt to planned electricity tariff increase, stressing focus on sector inefficiencies. Also, International Finance Corporation warns against weak corporate governance and poor succession planning threatens survival of African family businesses across generations. Plus, International Center for Evaluation and Development warns Ghana risks being left behind in the AI revolution without a robust national evidence bank of local data. I am Michael Obodu. Details of these and many other stories lined up for you. Do stay tuned. Thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story. And the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, is demanding that the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission halts the proposed adjustment in electricity tariffs, insisting that consumers should not be made to bear the cost of inefficiencies in the power sector. The call follows the PRC's announcement of an upward review in electricity tariffs, citing factors including exchange rate fluctuations, inflation, and rising costs of fuel as reasons for the proposed increase. GUTA says the PURC's justifications do not reflect current economic realities. In a statement, the association noted that inflation has declined significantly over the past year, while fuel prices have fallen in recent months. It also argued that improvements in the city's performance should ease rather than increase cost pressures on utilities. President of GUTA, Clement Boateng, said the regulator should suspend the proposed increase and instead focus on addressing operational inefficiencies within the sector.
There are a lot of inefficiencies and waste as far as these utility companies, are concerned. So we think if they focus on the inefficiencies and the waste, that will increase their revenue assurance, and there will be no need for them to, come up with increments now and then.
GUTA further argues that persistent inefficiencies, including system losses and waste within utility companies, should not be passed on to consumers and businesses through higher tariffs. The association warns that another increase in electricity costs could raise the cost of doing business and ultimately feed into higher prices for goods and services.
They have forgotten that this increment that they are calling for will add cost of production to the manufacturers, and then that will result in high prices of goods and services. We are of the view that the present tariffs that we are paying should be maintained because it is
do
just
not
this
reflect
January
current economic realities.
They came out
in a
with
statement, the GUTA says the PURC's. You heard the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, Clement Boateng, in that report. Now to some more stories now, and the International Finance Corporation, IFC, has raised concerns over the high failure rate of family-owned businesses during succession, warning that weak governance structures and poorly managed transitions continue to threaten the survival of businesses across generations. According to the IFC, Africa risks failing to build and sustain generational businesses unless the challenges surrounding succession planning and corporate governance are urgently addressed. Globally, only about 30% of family businesses survive into the second generation, while fewer than 15% make it to the third. The situation is even more challenging in Africa, where family-owned businesses account for a significant share of enterprises and employment. Experts say weak governance and poor succession planning are among the leading causes of failure. Speaking at the ESG Roundtable for Development Partners, acting ESG Advisory Lead for Africa at the International Finance Corporation, Moez Mayoui, underscored the importance of succession planning in ensuring the long-term viability of family businesses.
It's very important to have the right governance practices, structures, rules in place to make sure that you prepare the next leaders properly, on time, while you also prepare the current leaders to exit the business and to be a support to the future generations.
Also speaking at the event, Senior Country Officer at the IFC, Yawande Giwa, stressed the need to address these challenges to ensure family businesses create the jobs and sustainable growth needed to drive the economy.
When it comes to our focus areas in Ghana, such as growth and more and better jobs, these are not topics that are difficult to explain to family businesses. The reason is because when you're a family business, you don't just think about your bottom line. You're thinking about, how do I influence my community? How do I make a difference? How do I create more jobs for my immediate family, extended, and beyond? When you explain things like, how do I influence growth in Ghana? These aren't difficult topics for family businesses.
Now, that was a report on the International Finance Corporation warning that weak corporate governance and poor succession planning threaten survival of African family businesses across generations. Away from that, the International Center for Evaluation and Development, ICED, says Ghana risks being left behind in the artificial intelligence revolution unless it builds a robust national evidence bank to feed AI systems with local data. A leading policy think tank has warned. According to the center, the absence of organized and accessible local data could undermine efforts to use artificial intelligence to improve policy making and national development. The International Center for Evaluation and Development says the absence of organized and accessible local data could undermine efforts to use artificial intelligence to improve policy making and national development. For policymakers, turning research into action often remains a challenge due to the time required to process data, the sheer volume of information generated, and the limited accessibility of research findings. Speaking at the Evidence to Action Conference and Exhibition 2026, President of ICED, Dr. David Amayao, said artificial intelligence could help bridge the gap between research and policymaking, but only if the country invests in a localized and credible data ecosystem.
If you don't have an evidence bank in your country that the AI is synthesizing based on the context and the culture, then the AI will be giving you an evidence from other countries that are not trackable. We need to be able to gather the evidence in our country so that if we design responsible, cultural sensitive AI, policymakers can use an app, type, and within seconds.
Government also reaffirmed its commitment to promoting evidence-based policymaking. Delivering remarks on behalf of the Chief of Staff, Presidential Staffer Shamima Muslim said government remains committed to ensuring that policy decisions are increasingly informed by credible data and research.
His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has been unequivocal. This administration is committed to evidence-informed governance, not as a rhetorical commitment, but as a governance discipline embedded in how we plan, in fact, in how we envision, how we plan, implement, learn, unlearn, and recommit. We are taking deliberate steps to strengthen analytical capacity within key ministries.
You heard the presidential staffer Shamima Muslim bringing an end to today's edition of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more stories, check out our website at 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obodu. Thank you for tuning in. As always, please stay safe. Up next is Urban Blend and Blakk Rasta just walked in. Stay tuned.